Good day everyone. The first time I was exposed to Chinese tea was during my study in USM in 1990. Then after 27 years, I was reintroduced of Chinese tea by my father-in-law. 4 years after living with the Chinese tea, I decided to make a video in English for my friend who wished to learn more of the Chinese tea but faced with limited resources available from internet in English. So let's jump into it. In this sharing, I will cover Chinese tea categorization and potential factors associated with the taste of tea. I believe by having this basic information, one can start appreciating the Chinese tea more. First, how Chinese tea is commonly categorized. I shall break this section into the common market practice and my personal taste. The market common practice is by categorizing the tea into this popular group: red tea, black tea, green tea, oolong tea, white tea, and yellow tea. Under the red tea, there's a black tea. Now, not to be confused, in the Chinese red tea Hong Cha, in English was translated to black tea. Then under black tea, the popular one are ripe pu raw pu and liu pao. The popular green teas are long jing and pi lao chun. Or oolong tea example are ta hong pao and te guan ying. White tea, silver buds. Yellow tea are not so commonly seen. And for those of us who just want to enjoy a nice cup of Chinese tea without intention to be an expert, I would suggest we categorize this tea based on their taste, so you know which type of tea to drink based on the taste you like or your mood at the time. I categorize this tea into 4 groups by taste, which are aromatics, sweet, bitter or woody, and sour or acidic. For example, those tea with strong aromas are black tea, long jing, pi lao chun, ta hong pao, and te guan ying. And those tea that give you a sweet taste are ripe pu buds, raw pu buds, silver buds, and yellow tea buds. You see the word buds at the back of this tea. And ripe pu and liu pao give you a more bitter and woody taste, whereas raw pu will give you the more sour and acidic taste. You may notice Chinese tea leaves are sold in different packaging. The 2 most commonly found are pressed tea cake and loose tea. Those red tea, black tea, and white tea tend to be found in the packing of a pressed tea cake, whereas green tea, oolong tea, and yellow tea are commonly found in a loose tea form. If the tea is pressed back like this tea cake, you will need to break or loosen up before use for brewing. Next, let's look into what factor could be associated with the taste of tea. I see that there could be 8 potential factors associated with the taste of tea we brew. They are tea to water ratio, water quality, water temperature, time brew, clay used in the teapot, tea temperature, your taste bud, and lastly, your state of mindfulness. However, some factors could be more significant than others. For example, tea to water ratio and time brew could be more significant than clay used in the teapot. Tea to water ratio basically means how much tea and water we use to brew the tea in terms of the ratio between them. For oolong, pu and liu pao, it is suggested to be 1 to 30. And for black tea and green tea, 1 to 50. My current practice is for 240 ml water, or in the teapot size of 280 to 300 ml capacity. For white or yellow tea, I will use 10 gram, and for other tea, I will use around 8 gram. As mentioned, these and all other factors are variables. You can change this variable to have variety of taste to your liking, just like an experiment. Water quality. Some claim to have mineral water, but for me, the mineral requirement is not to mask or spoil the original tea taste. It's to have a filter water to get rid of the chlorine. As you know, chlorine is a chemical used in Malaysia water system. In terms of water temperature, the common practice is between 80 to 90 Celsius for most tea. My current practice is to transfer the water from the kettle when it's begin boiling into a flask for use. Next, time brew, for how long we leave the hot water brewing the tea leaf in our teapot before we pour it out to an equalizer jar. The time brew could be vary depending on type of teas. My current practice for black tea is rinse for 10 seconds, leave it for 30 seconds. First brew will 10 seconds and last brew will be 15 to 20 seconds. Check out my second series of this video on tea brewing demonstration at YouTube. For oolong tea, I will rinse for 20 seconds, leave it for 1 minute. First brew will be take about 20 seconds, second brew 30 seconds and last brew 40 seconds. Whereas for pu'er, raw pu'er buds, green tea, white tea and yellow tea, I will rinse for 20 seconds, leave it for 1 minute. First brew take 30 seconds, second brew 40 seconds and last brew will be 50 seconds to 1 minute. Lastly, I drink liu pao or ripe pu'er when I want a sweeter aftertaste, so I brew them a little bit longer. I will rinse them for 20 seconds, leave it for 1 minute. First brew will take 1 minute, second brew 2 minutes, and last brew 3 to 5 minutes. Next, type of clay used in making a teapot. We know different type of clay used to make a teapot have different porosity. However, we are unsure how significant this will affecting the taste. I personally can't tell the difference. Perhaps it is just a teapot seller marketing strategy for us to buy more teapot from them. Check out my third series of this video of teapot appreciation to know more about Chinese teapot. Nevertheless, since I have a dozen of different clay teapot, I will choose what clay teapot to use depend on the tea. For dark color tea like black tea, ripe pu'er, liu pao, I will use the porous teapot such as purple or green clay. For lighter color, raw tea, I will pick mixed clay. This is more to avoid dark tea stain inside out the teapot after much use. Lastly, for tea with strong aromas like green tea, white tea, yellow tea, oolong tea, to capture the aromas, we prefer high density or least porous red clay teapot. Like coffee, if you drink it when it's too hot, you can't actually taste it. Your tongue will just tell it's hot. Wait a while before you start to take your first sip. Some studies seem to show that drinking too hot beverage may link to throat cancer as well. Taste bud. Our sensory cells tend to adjust their sensitivity. So over time, you may feel like you need higher tea to water ratio. You can either increase it if your guest is receptive to it, if you drink with the guest, or stop drinking the tea for a week and resume later with the same amount of tea to water ratio. Some people use tea drinking as a means to cultivate mindfulness, especially those into Kung Fu tea ceremony. If you are not mindful, you tend to miss out the actual taste of the tea. Try to be mindful of the color of the tea, its aromas, viscosity, warmness before you take a sip of it. You will tend to taste more from the tea. Check out my second series of this video where I have demonstrated how to be mindful while drinking a tea. Some claim that you should not drink tea with empty stomach, or tea is acidic, etc. I actually did a pH test before. My home water is filtered and give the pH value around 6. I did not find this Chinese tea change much of the water pH value actually. I am someone who practices intermittent fasting, which I cure my gastroesophagus reflux disease, and can tolerate well with the tea or black coffee during the 14-hour fasting. Sometimes one gets the bloating not due to the tea, but due to the amount of liquid or water consumed in a short time. So limit your amount of liquid consumed in a short time if you have a stomach problem. Lastly, this is more my personal take on Kung Fu tea ceremony, which I don't practice. I see the process of Kung Fu tea ceremony, a practice of mindfulness, being at present. However, for a yogi practicing Vipassana meditation, I can see that such practice only cover Kayanupassana or contemplation of the body movement from Vipassana meditations. It is incomprehensive compared to the Vipassana meditation, which also cover Vedananupassana or feeling, Chittanupassana or the mind, and Dhammanupassana the Dhamma. On top of that, it is also time-consuming, especially post-ceremony turning up. Anyway, this is just my personal take. Go ahead and enjoy your tea the way you like most. With that, thank you for watching, and I hope you gather enough information about Chinese tea to start appreciating them. Don't forget to watch my second and third series of this video, Simple Chinese Tea Brewing Demonstration and Yi Xing Zi Sha Teapot Appreciation. See you then.